Psychedelics 101. This is a little bit of an introduction because my last video I got carried away and we started talking about the metaphysics of opening energetic portals and having angelic and demonic forces manifest before you in your friends so that you could see the inner workings of how the universe functions, a peek behind the curtain to somewhere beyond, and the potential ramifications of opening said portals. It was some heavy shit. We're going to back that up a little bit and start with an introduction to psychedelics, something a little chiller, something a little more entry level. Welcome. Now I want to start off by saying that I am no healthcare professional and you should not listen to anything I'm saying on this topic and that this is all purely for entertainment purposes, and let's count this as me just talking to myself. A crazy man. Psychedelics. You've probably already done them. Who hasn't? This day and age, it is commonplace, and unlike your standard party drug, there's something different with psychedelics. First thing we can note is that they're not nearly as casual. If you're out at a party and you snort a bunch of coke, if you've got okay cocaine, you're probably just going to have a real buzz and be a life of the party. Drink a little bit too much, and as long as you're not blacking out, you're probably also going to just add to the craziness that is a human party. Same thing goes for marijuana, though you might pass out. But when it comes to psychedelics, if you take a handful of mushrooms at a party, yes, there's the potential for you to have a good time, and there is the potential for you to go to hell at said party. And I'm smiling because some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. The same thing goes for LSD. The same thing goes for, well, if you're crazy enough to take mescaline, San Pedro cactus at a party, then you deserve to have your ass kicked. Same thing goes for ayahuasca. Same thing goes for changa, DMT, etc., etc. Psychedelics, as I'm hoping you're realizing, is something that shouldn't be taken casually. But I have an invitation. Not really an invitation because this is just me speaking, but I have a suggestion. If you've only ever taken psychedelics in a party situation or in a group situation, at a music festival, out in the sunshine, calm by a lake with some buddies, etc., all decent places to take psychedelics if you know the dosage, if you know yourself, if you know your limits and you're playing within them, if your set and setting are good, etc., etc., you can have a fantastic time. You can have a very euphoric time. You can start to see things in nature and fractal geometry and start to see the fingerprint of the divine everywhere around you, and it can be expansive. But I have an invitation. This is Psychedelics 101. The invitation is to start exploring these substances by yourself, alone. Now, this can seem like pretty irresponsible advice, and I already gave you the disclaimer earlier, so this is just me fucking around. But the greatest benefit you can gain from these substances is introspection. And when I say my advice is to start using these things solo, alone, it comes with a caveat, and that is dosage. Knowing your dosage. Because you can only freak out so much on a microdose. But if you're going to be reckless, like that goober that's at a party half cut deciding to palm back a handful of shrooms, you're asking for trouble. If you're not 100% certain of your stability in this life and your mental fortitude, and you eat a handful of mushrooms, 5, 6, 7, 8 grams, don't take any more, by yourself in a room, it could get bad. You could lose your mind. I've had several friends contact me as they're in the middle of a trip saying, I've lost my mind. They didn't say it that cohesively. It was a little more, mushrooms on a trip, they're coming for me. Scary shit. Not for 10 minutes. Not for 40 minutes. For 4 hours, 5 hours, 8 hours, sometimes 10 hours. Psychedelics is one of those things that it is a sacred tool for introspection, transformation, is a frequency modulator. And so to use it casually, like other casual drugs, is asking for trouble. But I would say if you haven't done it already yet, a fantastic area of self-exploration is to start using drugs on your own at home in a controlled environment. Now, when I say drugs, I mean psychedelics, also called entheogens, also called plant medicines, which have been used ceremonially for thousands of years to help people move past traumas, to help illuminate shadow, and to enhance spiritual transformation. But there's a big taboo still in saying you should do drugs alone at home by yourself, which again is not a recommendation, disclaimer. But look into it, because from that state, if you do it responsibly, there is so much personal growth and evolution that can happen. Things I would suggest. Now, you've heard it a million times before, set and setting, but what does that mean? It means, guys, that when you do psychedelics, it is an amplifier of states. It is a frequency amplifier. So if you're on psychedelics and all of a sudden on the TV, a news episode comes up, which is all fear-mongering all the time, and it says, disease, sickness, something's coming for you. Your mind, which is in an enhanced state, a hyper-receptive state, can take that idea of fear and it can amplify it for you. And so something that would normally elevate your fear a little bit, all of a sudden sends you to crazy land. It's like, don't take a handful of mushrooms and sit outside at Halloween while the kiddies are going by in costumes, because you'll be surrounded by monsters real quick and it will send you scared into the woods. So, set and setting. What you need to do if you're going to do drugs, especially high dose at home alone, is you need to control your environment. First thing I would say is clean up. Because in your normal state, a mess doesn't seem that bad. Some dust, some crumbs, some shit shoved into your closet, it doesn't seem that bad. But when you're high on psychedelics, it's the worst. All of a sudden, the disorder becomes disgusting. All of a sudden, you start to understand the concept of cleanliness is close to godliness. You start to understand why churches and temples are perfectly clean. Because these things matter in the sober state, but in the psychedelic state, when it's amplified, you can really see it. And so if you're at home and you've got these sketchy posters in your room and it's a fucking mess and there's socks all over the floor and you've got bad lighting, you've got an LED shining in your face and you're listening to some Metallica, you're going to have a really bad time because your state will be amplified. And if you're going to take a rocket ship to the moon inside of your mind, every nut and bolt needs to be screwed in perfectly in its place. There can't be any dust or crap or mice running around in your rocketry because that shit will explode. It's the same thing. You need a clean vessel. You need a clean temple. Your spaceship needs to be intact if you're going to make the voyage. Otherwise, it's not going to go where you want it to go. And so, to prepare yourself for this experience, clean your space. Fix your lighting. Any artificial lights, any LEDs, any big overhead lights, turn them all off. Light a shitload of candles. Get some amber bulbs for your lamps. Put them on dimmers. Get them down low. Make the place feel like a holy temple. Once it feels like a temple, and once it's clean, you then need to decide what kind of music you're going to have. Silence is tough because if you've got the sound of the street outside, you're going to be hearing cars go by and honks and ambulances, and that's going to send you on a whole different trip. If you live in pristine wildlife and it's just the sound of nature and birds, well, you're probably going to have an amazing time. But for the rest of people who live in cities, etc., you need to control the environment even more. Now, many songs that you think are perfectly fine, you will come to realize on a high dose of psychedelics that they are actually super demonic and discombobulating and detuning. Now, that's a whole different subject, and I'll make a video on it at some point, but basically the whole music industry is corrupt. Anything that would be played on the radio is impure frequencies for traveling on high-dose psychedelics. Let's just put it that way. They'll send you somewhere you don't want to go. My advice for high-dose exploration, by high dose, my standard is 4, 5, 6, 7 grams of psilocybin mushrooms. I don't tend to do LSD at home because it takes too much time. I would say mushrooms is probably the only one I do at home. in form of a tea. Now, what I would suggest for this type of a trip is to put on something simple, something beautiful, something that doesn't have too many reference points to draw your mind outside of your experience that's going on internally, the work. You don't want to go into one of these trips and have a big playlist of dance music or EDM or deep house or any of this shit, Tim McGraw, whatever it is, because reference points, every lyric, everything that talks about something will shoot you into your mind, into some memory, into some thought, and that's not why you're here. You're going to get fucking scattered and lost into whatever the artist is spelling out for you in their lyrics, in their hooks. Instead, you need something that's going to provide an ambient background. It's going to become part of the environment. The lighting should add to the environment without distracting. Cozy, comfortable. The cleanliness should add to the environment because filth distracts. Comfort. Make sure you're non-restrictive clothing. Make sure you can get comfortable. Make sure there's nothing to do. Make sure the place is clean. Make sure it's lit well. Make sure there's an ambient music that you won't have to deal with. I'm talking hours and hours and hours of background sound that you can have on low that's just going to nestle you in this space, cozy you, protect you, become part of your safety blanket. And then as you go into this journey, let's take psilocybin as a tool for this. Prepare your mushrooms. Prepare your energy. Breathe into it. Have faith that everything's going to be all right and that you are embarking on a sacred journey that has been taken by men and women for thousands of years. Turn off your cell phone. No buzzers. Seal yourself into a sacred room. Have some gentle tea ready. Have some water ready. Have a little snack of fresh fruit, something very simple, because on psychedelics, when you come off them, you're not going to want to eat a steak. It's going to repulse you and you're going to start to realize that maybe you shouldn't be eating meat in the first place. But a nice gentle piece of fruit, some grapes, some blueberries in a bowl, you'll be stoked you have them. Prepare your psilocybin into a tea. Chop it up with reverence. Mix it with water from the kettle. Make sure the water isn't hotter than 80 degrees Celsius, because above 80 degrees Celsius it starts breaking down the active ingredients in the psilocybin, and it will no longer be as bioavailable, psychedelic, potent. Take this mushroom that you've chopped up, mix it in the tea, gently steeping it. If you want the full effect, you can drink the whole thing. It's a bit sludgy. If you want a smoother come up, you can filter the tea and take out the actual bits of mushroom and just have the tea. And if you want to take it to the next level, you can squeeze some lemon juice in it, which will increase the rapidity of the come on and reduce the duration of the trip, making it more intense but not last as long, which is sometimes very convenient. What would be an 8-hour trip can be condensed into a 4-hour trip sometimes. The biggest thing I can suggest to you if you're going to embark on this sacred journey is to handle all of it with reverence, extreme reverence, and bravery. It is a rite of passage. It is nerve-wracking. Even for someone who's done it 100 times, there is a fluttering of the heartbeat because you don't really know what's behind that door. You think you know, even if you've gone there 100 times, you don't really know what's in store for you because it is a portal you're opening. There's a handshake with the divine to say, I trust you, I am here for this exchange, show me what I need to see. But you will increase your chances of success, your chances of breakthrough. It will increase your chances of actually getting something from this, of value, instead of some entertainment like other drugs, if you follow these steps and if you are there with reverence. Probably the most important thing you need is to know what your intention is. Why are you doing this? If you find yourself getting to this step just before you drink your tea, you don't really know why you're doing it, have a moment. Sit your ass down. Figure out why. What are you doing this for? Is it to discover self-love? Is it to move past fear? Is it to get over a trauma? Is it to understand why something happened in your life? Whatever it is, hold that intention loosely, with no firm expectation, but an intention, and then enter. And after you enter, relax. Don't hold on. It's like if you're bungee jumping. If you're sitting on the edge and you're afraid, and then you kind of fall off and you're holding on to the edge, your bungee jump is going to be shit. You're going to be filled with fear. You need to fall off and let go, because your suffering will happen when you grip to your sobriety. And psychedelics are designed to help usher you to the threshold of surrender so that you can let go, and in that space, the divine can come and communicate with you in whatever ways it sees fit. But you need to set up the ritual, set up the ceremony. And when you do, and you have that reverence and that intention, the divine can see that you're taking this seriously and will show you more and more and more. And I can promise you, to all of you psychedelic users or anybody interested watching, that if you would like a physical experience of confirmation of there being something other than just this nuts and bolts reality, spirits, the divinity, you can find that in this space, 100%. But you are also playing in a space where energy comes into play. And if you are tuned up and going through this experience, and you've got the lighting nailed, and you've got the music nailed, and you've got the dosage nailed, and you've got your intention nailed, and you've got all these things lined up, and it's very pure, very holy, very beautiful, you will have a different experience in that container than if it's casual, if you're sloppy, if the lighting's terrible, if the noises around you are terrible, if the music is terrible and wrenching, if you're doing it because you're in a low state expecting to get happy, if you're doing it because you're depressed, if you're doing it because you're X, Y, and Z, you will open a different container, a different portal, a different area. The most important part, no matter where you go, once you end up in this space, is to not be afraid. Because, like I said, it's an amplifier of your state, and if you are fearful, that will amplify. And it's like if you see a spider this big and it brings you fear, and you allow that fear to take you, all of a sudden the spider will be the size of the room, and it'll be on top of you, and you'll be Frodo there dropping his little fucking light, and you'll be, oh no, Shelob. And it's going to be a shit show. It's an amplifier of states, and when you explore at the higher dosages, you need to be very careful. You are messing with magic, as I said in the other video. But if you do it right, and you tick all the boxes, and you begin with a reasonable dose, 1 gram, next 2 grams, try 3 grams, see what happens at 4 grams if you can let go. Can you die at 5 grams? I mean ego death. Can you let go completely to the point where you separate from your own humanity? You need to bungee jump into the void, free fall. And it's Terence McKenna says it, this free fall into the void is actually a free fall into a featherbed, if you do it right. But you gotta treat it with respect. I'm here to say in this introduction that psychedelics are not to be fucked with. They're not casual. If you've been just taking handfuls of these things at parties, stop. Because if it hasn't fucked with you yet, at some point it will, because these substances are magic, and it's not like other drugs. It's not like taking some MDMA. It's not like these other drugs. It's different. And you'll have to learn that for yourself. And all I can say is, no matter what happens, don't be afraid. Surrender to your fear and remember the truth that you are an eternal being, that there is nothing that can mess with you, and that your love And the strength you hold in your heart, your belief, that is the thing that will control the world around you. And if you move into fear, the world around you will become very fearful, and psychedelics will make that very plain, very clear. And if you focus on love, if you focus on fearlessness, if you focus on the fact that you can never die, truly, on a spiritual level, then that container you will create as a manifestation of your state will be one of stability and love. And in all this, you will gain some invaluable learning. And so I invite all of you, first and foremost, to start taking psychedelics much more seriously in terms of the respect you bring, the reverence. And if you've been doing them casually, I would invite you to try to do them ritualistically, sacredly, in the way that they've been used for thousands of years before humanity started using them as party substances. It's crazy. And if you do it all right, if you follow the steps, they can be a catalyst for your awakening. But as Timothy Leary once wisely said, when you get the message, hang up the phone. And so when you get your breakthrough or your epiphany or your aha moment, before diving back in, ask yourself from your sober state, what does this mean? Don't let it wash away on the shores of insanity and say, that was crazy. I was real high during that. What does it mean? And then integrate that wisdom. Because you will learn things about this world that you can't learn in a YouTube video, that you can't learn from another. You need to go through it yourself in a sacred rite of passage. Ask yourself, what does it mean? What you've just experienced, and then integrate that. If you take all these steps and treat it with this much reverence, every time you go into this sacred space, you will come back with a nugget of gold to integrate into your life. Good luck. Thank you for being here. No matter what you do, remember, don't be afraid. Good luck, folks. Peace.